I'm going to call tonight's meeting to order. Let's rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Murray.
Present.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Present.
Mayor Matsumoto Wright.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Here.
Councilmember Sonmore.
Here.
Councilmember Woodard.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. So first thing on our agenda is public comments. Do we have any public comments from anyone in the audience or online?
No one is signed up in person, and there's no one in the online audience.
All right, so we'll move along to the consent calendar then. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to approve the consent calendar, items A and B.
Second. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Oh, I should wait. And so it has passed. Next is something we haven't done in quite a few years, and I'm really glad that it's coming back. And it's a recognition of an Eagle Scout. And Kent Courtmatch, you can come up and introduce We used to do this often, so hopefully we'll have more projects in town in the future for more Eagle Scout projects.
And I'm sure we will, but it was 2020, I think was the last time that we actually were before you with Scouts. We used to average 2 to 6 a year before that. So, but we are here tonight, and I'm Ken Courtmatch, the Parks and Facility Superintendent for the City of Mountlake Terrace. And with me is Noah Knodel, who is the Chair of the Recreation Park Advisory Commission, and Sally Buckingham, who is the Regent of the Lady Sterling Chapter of the National Society of Daughters of the Revolution. So as you noted, we haven't been here before you for a long time. We do have a scout here, though. His name is Matthew LePere. And Matthew, why don't you come up and join us at the center of the chambers? So to achieve Eagle status within the Boy Scouts of America is not an easy task. One of the many requirements is to do a volunteer project that benefits the local community. Matthew approached the park staff with some ideas for an Eagle project within the Mountlake Terrace park systems. And since Matthew enjoys disc golf, he was interested in a project that involved the disc golf course at Terrace Creek Park. He met with me and Seattle Disc Golf President Lowell Shields to develop a plan to move a few of the holes around for better play, for better flow, and for protection of the people that were using the park. The original plan intended to move 3 holes, however, because of a property designation, he ended up moving 2. And he started his project about 1.5 years before he could complete it, due to numerous things, from weather to the actual process of the planning of the locations. And it also turned out that in the area that he was doing it required a SEPA application. So Matthew stuck with it, and he was able to complete his project last October. He coordinated all the volunteers, received donations for all of the materials, and he even completed the first draft of the SEPA application himself. So very impressive, actually, Matthew. So on behalf of the City of Mountlake Terrace, we'd like to present Matthew with a certificate of appreciation, which Chair Knodel can read.
Right. Let you look at it while I read it. So on behalf of the City of Mountlake Terrace, in recognition of completing an Eagle project at the disc golf course at Terrace Creek Park, we appreciate your hard work and your dedication to public recreation facilities. So thank you very much, Michael.
Don't go away just yet. So we do have a surprise for you. So Sally is here because we have something we rarely get to do at council recognitions. Eagle candidates and scouts often take an extra year or so just to complete their actually becoming an Eagle and gaining their Eagle status. So usually we don't get to do this However, Matthew has already actually achieved his Eagle status, and we had the opportunity to let Sally Buckingham aware of that, who is affectionately known as the Flag Lady. And she then was able to secure getting a flag flown over the U.S. Capitol in honor of Matthew of completing his, becoming an Eagle Scout. So, Sally, would you like to present?
I would. Thank you. So, I do this all over Washington, California, Nevada, Oregon, Wyoming, and Utah. So I'm a busy lady. But when Ken called me, I said, oh, I got to get that on my calendar and make some phone calls. So I have a certificate from the National Society, Daughters of the American Revolution, and I proudly present the certificate and flag of the United States of America today, March 6th, 2023, to you, Matthew, for your achievement to become an Eagle Scout. We have more. So I contacted Susan Del Bene's office, and I said, I'm the flag lady. And she didn't know who I was, but she does now. Because you have brought me to her attention. If it wasn't for you, I probably wouldn't be on her calendar. So she sent a certificate of special congressional award to Matthew LePere upon your attainment of the rank of Eagle Scouts in the Boy Scouts of America. And it was signed on February 6th. Then I have another challenge for you. My challenge is to put the next thing I'm going to award you with on your resume. That's all I ask. So I have a challenge coin for you. That challenge. Mom and Dad, pay attention. It's an honor for me to present you with the United States flag flown over the nation's capital in your honor on February 6th, 2023. Please accept this with my gratitude and my honor. You're welcome. So with that, we have a flag certificate because this flag is going to stay with you through your life, with your family, with your children, maybe even your grandchildren. Depends on how you take care of it. So the flag certificate has a number. And this number is very important because it's like your Social Security number. And it goes with the flag. So keep it together with the flag because it's important. You've got all sorts of things going on. My goodness. So it's an honor to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. All right, well, the City of Mountlake Terrace would like to thank you, Matthew. And we are fortunate to have fine young people like you within our community. And I'm sure that the council would like to thank you themselves. And Ricky, if you would like to take over and see if we can get the council to maybe do a photo op with Matthew before he leaves.
Yeah, if everyone's comfortable, we can just do a quick photo op right here. Terrace, you're welcome to jump in.
Maybe you can hold one of them up.
You guys want to come in that photo? And maybe on either side? All right, everybody look at me and I'm going to take a couple. So we're going to go for a few seconds. While you're leaning a little bit toward me.
I'll get on the outside. I'll go right there.
All right, everybody look at me. Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Sally,
Ricky, can you get one more picture? Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you, everybody. That was a surprise. Pardon? Oh, yes, if you want to say something, go ahead.
Mom and Dad, as well as our Eagle Scout, we wanted to actually share some words with you all. Down there was great, but always good to put it in the actual public record. So I had the honor of serving as the chair of RPAC, and this was always my favorite time. So it's always wonderful to get to stand there and read, quite frankly, a piece of history, active history at that. So from the bottom of my heart, as one who uses the disc golf course, thank you for clearing that up. We could never figure out which hole to throw at, so we just always threw down the hill, which was cheating. But thank you for clearing that up. But more importantly, what an honor to be here as you get recognized for achieving something very rare, which is sad to say in our country. I think if more folks had gone your path, we'd be in a much better place. And to that challenge of this idea of putting it on your resume, for what it's worth to know, we just went through a long process to choose a new city manager. However, our former city manager was an Eagle Scout. So I always want to acknowledge that you just never know where this training is going to take you. And quite frankly, sky's the limit. So what an honor to recognize that. Maybe one day I'll be out there looking back at you as you're sitting somewhere here in the middle with perhaps mayor or perhaps sitting on the side here with city manager. Who's to say? But best wishes, and to do it as a family. Thank you all for taking time out and to come, support your son. I'm sure it's been a lot of long hours and probably some frightening times in there when you have to let him go and be a man early on. But what a wonderful representation of family before us. So just from the bottom of my heart, thank you for all that you're doing, and thank you for what you're going to continue to do with this platform. So thank you.
Does anyone else have anything they want us to add?
Not after that. Wilson.
So my son was an Eagle Scout quite a few years ago, and we didn't have celebrations like this at that time, or that I knew of. And we do now, so great. Okay, so next on our agenda is the review and approval of resolution for recreation program limited term scholarship policy.
Well, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. I'm Jeff Betts, Recreational Parks Director. And tonight, I'm before you to review and at the council's discretion to maybe approve the resolution for the Recreation Program Limited Term Scholarship Policy. So recreation programs do provide a wide array of different opportunities for people of all ages. And many families can't afford those programs, unfortunately. But we do have financial policies that require recreation and parks to recover their costs or a percentage of their costs. So that's why the existing scholarship fund exists. It's called the Michelle Ringler Scholarship Fund. And if anybody remembers why it's called that, Michelle Ringler worked for Recreation and Parks, and she was an advocate for specialized recreation at the pavilion from 1992 until her passing in 2007. So over 15 years, she worked in Recreation and Parks. So council renamed that scholarship fund after her in February of 2008. So that program that we currently have is based off of donations only, and so it varies year to year of how much we actually receive in donations, but it's around $1,500 to, in the past, up to $4,000 we could raise. Lately, I'd say in the past few years, it's that lower amount. But it's primarily for, well, actually I should say, it is specifically for Edmonds School District students, and it's for youth only, and it had a max amount of $50 per quarter, which nowadays does not pay for a lot, when 1 week of summer camp is $230 or so. And it also primarily pays for swim lessons or dance classes. That's primarily what it was used for. And then we usually give out about 20 scholarships per year, depending on funds. And its qualifications are based upon SNAP, or the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, income requirements, which is about 130% of the poverty line. So for this budget cycle, 2023 and 2024, staff presented a budget that had $10,000 per year funded with ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act, for scholarships. So that's why we're here, is to figure out what that should entail and what we should be able to offer those scholarship funds to people within the community. So staff set about by researching other cities in the Puget Sound area, and we looked at Seattle, Kirkland, Renton, Bellevue, Linwood, and Edmonds. And their policies varied, but many similarities to what we currently do and what we thought might work best. We brought this before RPAC, the Recreation Parks Advisory Commission, in February, and we refined that policy a little bit, but they did recommend we move forward with this limited term policy. And I call it limited term because it is funded with ARPA money for 2 years only. So that $10,000 per year with ARPA funds would expire after the 23-24 budget, and then would have to go to a new budget process where potentially council would want to fund it. They would approve it. It would be out of general fund dollars, unless a different grant was found to pay for that. But the parameters of this limited term policy would be Mountlake Terrace residents only. These are the recommendations from staff and council, or I'm sorry, from staff and RPAC. It would be Mountlake Terrace residents only, since it is funded with ARPA money. Be for youth 18 and under, people with documented physical disabilities, and seniors 60 plus. It would be more funding per person, $250 per calendar year, so January through December. Would also increase the programs that are available to them, so all drop-in and classes except adult sports, retail concessions, any late fees or material fees or rentals would not be eligible. But the qualifications would be a little wider than we currently have. It would include any student who qualified through the Edmonds School District for free or reduced lunches, which is set at 185% of poverty line. So that would be the other measurement would be, we could utilize the recent tax return of 185% of the poverty line, which is the same measurement. A social security letter that shows the permanent physical disability. And an example of that 185% threshold would be if the average household size of 3, the maximum amount would be $45,991. So if the household income exceeded that, they would not be eligible. A family of 4 would be $55,500, and a family of 5 would be $65,000, and those based on 2023 numbers. So we also would use the scholarship function built in within our software registration program to allow it to be applied to the desired activity. So we hope to start marketing this program and these recommendations as soon as it's approved. We intend to develop a web page to allow applications, and that way sort of automate it a little bit so we can receive it and be available for people. Summer camp registration just began this week, so thus the intention of getting out as soon as possible to be able to utilize those 2023 funds. So that would be the staff recommendation and our pack, and I'd be willing to answer any questions at this point.
We have Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Jeff, for the presentation. I think this is a terrific program. I enjoyed learning about it in the materials. Just wondering how, outside of the web page, folks will learn about this opportunity, and if there's any thought or planning going into other advertisement and sort of regional or school district resources where folks could who would probably benefit most from this program or this opportunity might learn about it.
Yes, absolutely. We probably put together a marketing plan specific to this program. And one of the ways we've thought about doing that would be obviously social media. It's free and we can actually get the word out pretty well. But there are student advocates at every school. And so we would target the Mountlake Terrace ones, those since it's for residents only, and try to get those student advocates to get the word out, to get them to apply. And they specifically know a lot of the kids that could use this. So that would be the idea, is just try to go directly to the students that could utilize it the best.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Jeff, and all of the staff for the work on the program. Excited about it, excited to move forward with it. I did have a question around kind of the adults with physical disabilities piece. I'm curious if there was any conversation around just basing it on, similar to the senior discount on income alone, and taking out that disability piece, just recognizing, I think, the value that recreation has to all people, which I think is one of the reasons we continue to invest, significant general funds dollars in parks and recreation every year. I guess I'm just curious if that conversation was had at all, and if so, what was the why behind that piece?
Yeah, if you're referring to making it open to everybody, essentially, right, removing the disability designation to say all adults, yes, youth and seniors. We did have that discussion, and we actually talked about it at the RPAC level as well, and a couple RPAC commissioners, Recreation Parks Advisory Commission commissioners, were in favor of that as well. So it was something that we weighed, knowing that there's really limited funds and there's not as many adult programs that I think that would qualify. There could be some programs such as like fitness classes or aquatics, type classes. So it's possible if we wanted to go that route, it's entirely doable.
I guess, yeah, I think from my perspective, I think that would be a really interesting, especially since this is kind of a pilot over the next 2 years. I think it would be really interesting to really understand fully, ideally, what our need is. And so I would be interested in that. I think particularly given what you just told us about there being fairly limited uses for it, potentially for that demographic, it seems to me like that might be an adjustment that we could make to, I think that's very aligned with our goals around this program, right? Which is how do we ensure that folks who cost is a barrier to participation are able to participate? And I think that runs the gamut from kids to, adults to seniors, and would love to make sure that we are reaching all of the folks who would benefit from this. And so I guess, yeah, I ideally would love to see that be, I guess, an edit to this. But outside of that, I think it looks great, and I'm really, really excited and appreciate all of the work on it.
Anyone else? Oh, go ahead, Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you. I believe you were very thorough with going through this. Did you say it was $10,000 a year?
Yes.
All right, great. Sounds really good. Yeah, and you went through a lot of the things that I was thinking of with the Recreation Department. So thank you.
Anyone else? Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, thank you for bringing this proposal forward. It looks like a very awesome program. Really just a comment in addition to that, which is in terms of the recruitment. I would encourage you, if you haven't already thought to do this, to reach out to some of the nonprofits that are working with that population, student population. Washington Kids in Transition comes to mind. I can name some other ones offline for you. It sounds like you know about the family advocates with the school district. That's Dr. Sally Guzman. So just folks like that, if I can be of any assistance in connecting you to folks, do not hesitate to reach out to me. Thank you for doing this.
Okay, anyone else? Mayor Pro Tem?
If we are ready, I am prepared to put this on the table for consideration. I'll move to adopt the resolution to set the recreation program limited term scholarship policy.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Can we just go ahead and vote? Did you want to have discussion first? All right.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I?
Go ahead.
Well, I think if we're going to move forward with this tonight, I would love to make an amendment to the motion. And so I think I would like to move, and Hillary's online, so Hillary, you can tell me if I don't do this quite right, but I would like to line item edits here. I guess maybe I can get a little direction. Would it be best if I'm to strike section 2.3 and change section 2.2 to just adults, and then strike the 2.2.3, provide a letter from Social Security showing permanent physical disability? Does that make sense? Yeah.
I think so.
So moved. Can I just... Did you catch that, or do you want me to try to restate it?
I'll, first of all, second it to, for purposes of further discussion.
Thank you.
And
So we're doing more discussion.
yeah, so if I,
Go ahead.
perhaps, yeah, so now we are discussing the amendment to the motion, and perhaps the maker of the motion can explain the purpose of the amendment, and as long as staff followed that and our attorney followed that, we should be in good shape. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's all right.
That's all right.
Thank you, Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem. Okay, so the motion was to strike section 2.3, specifically targeted at seniors, and then edit section 2.2, which currently reads adults with physical disabilities, to just read 2.2 adults, which again, there's section 2.2.1, which is adults must be 18 years up and up, 2.2.2, residing within the city limits of Mountlake Terrace. Strike section 2.2.3, provide a letter from Social Security showing permanent physical disability, so that section would be removed. And then section that's currently 2.2.4 would now be 2.2.3, provide a recent tax return demonstrating that you meet the 185% of poverty threshold. So with that amendment, what that would do is that would make all adults who meet the income limitations of this program eligible for the program regardless of physical disability. Yeah, make sense? All right.
I followed it.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilmember Salmo.
Would they all be subject to having an income tax return? Because I'm thinking if somebody is disabled and they live with their parents would claim them on their income tax, and so they wouldn't have their own statement to show.
Is that a question for me or Jeff?
Whoever wants to.
I think that it could be, yeah, it's going to have to be the tax return if they're out of school. That's the only method that we have if it's not a school-aged person. So I think that that would be the way, unless there's a different method that we know of to delineate that.
I was just thinking the Social Security would be the other method of showing, and we're striking that.
But if we're now making it all adults, then it doesn't matter whether it's anybody with disabilities or not, right? So.
And Laura, the policy doesn't call out how staff are verifying it. It's just that, oh, it does. Actually, I take that back. Sorry, it is a recent time. So that's not a change, though, from how it currently stands. So I guess if we're concerned about that, that's a different conversation.
You were just removing the Social Security part of it.
Exactly. We're just removing the part that pertains to physical disability and leaving it solely based on income qualification.
Is that, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. In other words, the amendment would open it up to all adults, income qualifying. I think the point the council member Sonmore is making is there an appropriate additional measure in case they're not able to show, I mean, they're low income, but they're not able to show it via tax returns. If we can think of anything, maybe we can consider that. And maybe the way to do this is just to adopt the amendment, adopt the policy, and then listen for feedback as we are going through the program. And if we get any feedback that we're missing somebody unintentionally because of policy, then perhaps we can have either A, some flexibility, or B, some additional guidance for our amending our policy further in the future. If that sounds okay with everyone.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, Jeff, how does it work now? Do you have any problems with it working now?
No, right now we don't, but we use a different amount now. We actually utilize the SNAP. So people provide the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. So they provide proof based on that 130%. So it's what we currently do right now is have them provide that tax return information.
Go ahead.
Can I make a friendly amendment? If Brian will, if Mayor Pro Tem will agree, could we also revise as part of my amendment to the amendment section, what will be the new section 2.2.3, and just say, provide or demonstrate that you meet 185% of poverty threshold? Then we leave it to staff to figure out what that demonstration is. Yeah?
Sounds good.
Okay, awesome.
Is everybody?
I have a question on isn't it true that some people who are in an income level where they don't do tax returns? So how do they prove?
Let staff figure that out.
Yeah, I think that's what the amendment to the amendment is trying to get at, is to give some flexibility to staff. So the amendment is basically opening it up to all adults, income qualifying based on staff review.
In addition to that, that would kind of be based on seniors too. Maybe they're not doing some certain type of income tax like you were just talking about, Mayor, and that's something we should look at as well.
So we're on, did you follow the amendments?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess the key is.
I got it.
Staff and our city attorney, Jeff and the city attorney all followed that. And so basically we're opening it up to all qualifying adults, giving flexibility to staff to ensure proper process and qualifications. Correct? And
Being a steward of good funds, does that impose anything to your staff of so with this being passed, could you just kind of explain to me what they would do? Because I don't want them to feel like they're in a certain state of trying to figure out what is what or embarrass the person, because that's not what we're trying to do. And I just wanted to make sure with the changes, so if I came to the counter, you would ask me, so I'd ask for the scholarship, you would ask me for my income tax return, or now staff can ask me for something else?
Yeah, I think that we would ask them to demonstrate they meet the 185% poverty level. So whether that's their income tax return or some other method, I think that they could document that either with maybe pay stubs or something like that. There are other cities that use pay stubs too. So I think that we could be flexible in that way.
Or Social Security? I'm just trying to think of.
Sure, for
Oh,
seniors, yeah, I think so.
okay. Thank you.
Let's,
Thank you. I was just going to ask a question. So recognizing that the verbiage for 2.1 for children reads the same, can I make a second friendly amendment to the amendment to the motion? I mean, so I think essentially we want the same verbiage throughout, correct? We want for whether it's for a child to qualify or an adult to qualify, we want to take out the tax return portion and just say that they are demonstrating that they meet 185% of the poverty threshold, correct?
And would you be removing the free lunch? Because some schools.
No.
Some schools now are giving all the children free lunch.
Not any in Mountlake Terrace. Qualifying for free or reduced lunch would still be different than us changing parameters of how we handle school lunch, and at this point that is
How do you prove that you qualify for free lunch?
the same ways by qualifying your income.
So you could get something, I'm just asking if you could get something from the school district? And they could, I just want to make it easy so people aren't.
Yeah, so almost everybody, when my kids were in school, you get sent the free reduced form, and everybody's supposed to fill it out theoretically, but it is pretty widely done by all students and parents. That's filled out and turned, and then they have documentation that they do qualify for it, and that's what they would show
They
us.
used to have little cards, yeah.
I believe so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And I apologize if you're already thinking to do this, Jeff, but because this is a pilot, it'd be interesting if it's not adding too many additional steps or onerous work to keep track of who doesn't qualify, who thought they should, for no other reason than it might give us a chance to cast a net slightly different than what we're doing right now. And it's just one of those to where we don't want anybody who really wanted to be engaged to not be engaged, but kind of recognizing we might have some wiggle room in here that we just can't foresee right now. So if that's not too much effort, I would say please find methods to gather that data.
Yeah. And that goes along with because recently I heard one of our elementary school was one of the poorest in the district. And I don't know if that's still true or not. And so that's why I was kind of investigating a little bit more about the free lunches. So thank you.
No. Thank you. Jeff, on all the different 2.21, 2.22, 2.23, and everything else that's been mentioned, I'm getting a little confused. Looking at it, what would be different that you would understand, and would that cause a problem with funding at the $10,000 level?
No, I think the changes make it more widely available to more people to be funded potentially, right? And one of my worries was that by doing it, opening up to everybody, then maybe less kids or less seniors would have the funding available to them, which was why we narrowed it a bit. But I think it could go either way. There's no definitive, it's just a recommendation, and definitely, I think that it's valuable to say that all adults and children are eligible too. So I think it could have went definitely either direction on that. And our PAC had opinions both ways as well. So I think that I don't think this keeps us from giving the full amount of money out at all. I think that maybe it could increase the chances a little bit.
So would you support that?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
all right, Mayor Pro Tem.
Actually, motion's on the table. I'll call for the question.
That's right. So we're voting right now on the amendment first. So for the amendment, we're going to call for the question. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. And then, do we go to the,
Unless there's further discussion on the motion as amended, call for the question.
so I can call for a question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Oh, I keep forgetting to wait one second. All opposed? So motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, council.
Okay. All right, so next on the agenda is the review and approval of the amendment number 2 to the 2018 Interlocal Agreement with Edmonds School District number 15 for recreational facilities and services.
And good evening again. I'm Jeff Betts, Recreation Parks Director still. So tonight, as mentioned, this is another review and approval, and I do apologize for doing the double in the same meeting in that fashion. But this one is pretty straightforward, hopefully. But I would like to detail a little bit of the background and just for a couple of minutes, and then make sure that everybody understands what we're asking for. And so essentially, this is about interlocal agreements and recreational services and facilities with the city and the school district. So we've been partners for many, many decades here in Mountlake Terrace. And the most recent agreement, if everybody remembers, in 2018, council approved a new agreement that original agreement was from 1988, the mutual lease agreement. So it ran its course, and there were many amendments and changes within that. If everybody remembers, way back in that 1988 mutual lease agreement, it was to do with Terrace Park schools, and at the time it was Mountlake Terrace Junior High. It's athletic fields, which we call evergreen play fields 4, 5, and 6, right next to the dog park where the fireworks are for Tour de Terrace, where the car show is, on the fields down below. We call it evergreen 4 and 5. Agreement also dealt with the Mountlake Terrace High School Theater, the kids' crew before and after school sites, the recreation pavilion, swimming pool, and racquetball courts. And it did not deal with Terrace Park Gym, which was a separate agreement. So there's been many iterations of that agreement, but in 2018, those elements I just described were part of the new agreement with the school district for interlocal. So in 2021, we did an amendment, and it changed the reporting structure to a calendar year. From a calendar year to a school district year, really just to simplify the recording of the use of those types of facilities. And now we're here to talk about amendment number 2 to that agreement. And it really, the short of it is it's to extend the term of the agreement. So right now, the agreement is the first 5-year term set to expire this end of this year, December 31st. And there are 2 more 5-year terms in that agreement. Well, we applied for Youth Athletic Facilities Grant for Evergreen Playfield number 5, which is adjacent to the dog park. And it has light poles on there that have metal halide lighting fixtures from around 1995 that they were installed. And currently we have to get up about a 90 to 100-foot lift to maintain those lights, which is very, very expensive to rent. So about annually, we have to go up there and get that done. And usually we have to hire an electrician to do so, because anything can go wrong up there at any time with those lighting fixtures. So this grant that we applied for would replace those lighting fixtures and add new poles, all LED lighting. We applied for this grant, and we ranked number 10 out of, let's see, how many were there? I think there were 34 total applicants. And so we are in line to get funding, but one of the requirements is RCO requires at least 20 years of an agreement to be between the 2 interlocal agreement entities. So our agreement doesn't extend long enough, so we need to get that pushed out further to receive the money. So a couple of the caveats to that, though, is the legislature has to approve the money, right? So that still hasn't happened, and that will be the next couple months. But we need to have this agreement signed by the summer so we can be eligible, essentially. So the amendment actually adds 3 additional 5-year terms to get us over 20. It actually puts us at 25 years that this ILA would be in effect. And it really just continues this decades-long partnership between the school district and city, and it guarantees those ongoing recreational facilities for all of our residents. The other thing interlocal agreements really do is they just leverage existing property and resources. And, Mountlake Terrace is 4 square miles. We're pretty built out. We can't build new fields. So upgrading our existing ones is a priority of the Recreation Park Open Space Master Plan. So that is all I have on that presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, though.
Are there any questions? Wow. Shall I call? We do have a question. Go ahead, Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Jeff, I think that this makes terrific good sense, and I wish us the best of luck at with the capital budget this year. Hopefully we get it funded. Are there any, I guess I'm thinking about just extension of this interlocal agreement. Is there anything else on the horizon or other dynamics at play that might sort of be impacted by the extension of this interlocal agreement? I'm guessing not, given the historical sort of standard here that you described, but would just love your thoughts on if this impacts any other or extends any other elements of our coordination and agreement with the school district.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't impact anything negatively. We only own pretty much from the infield east of that field. So there's a partial ownership piece with that field, which is really odd. So that the infield Evergreen Playfield number 5 east is city property and west of that is school district property. So there's a field that's partially owned by each. So it'd be pretty tough for either entity to do anything differently on that site as far as development or other recreation facilities. But I mean, potentially the school district would want to do something, but they're willing to move forward with this as well. So I don't think they foresee any changes as well with the site.
Got it. Well, thanks for entertaining my curiosity.
All right, anyone else? Okay, shall we call for the question? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to authorize the city manager to sign Amendment 2 to the 2018 interlocal agreement with Edmonds School District Number 15 for the exchange of recreational facilities and services.
Second. Sorry, brother.
We're
Second.
so enthusiastic, we have 2 seconds. All right, all in favor?
Oh,
Discussion. Are there any discussion? I don't see anyone. I don't see anyone out there. So now I can call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, so next, thank you very much, Jeff. So next on our agenda is the city manager's report.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. I want to congratulate the council for having spent quite a few hours over 2 days, Friday and Saturday of last week, interviewing and watching presentations on the part of 5 finalists for the Mountlake Terrace city manager position. I also want to congratulate you on coming together after extensive executive session discussions among yourselves with a motion that you made fairly late in the day, Saturday, which you all, in a unanimous vote, approved the authorizing our consultant to enter into a contract with Jeffrey Knighton, who is currently the city manager of Shelton, Washington, to be Mountlake Terrace's next city manager. Our consultant has been in discussions with Mr. Knighton today, and we do have an understanding. And so there is a letter of intent to reflect that understanding that I'll ask, which I just received a few hours ago. I'll ask the mayor to sign on the council's behalf. This would serve as a foundation for a contract which you'll get in the next few days. We don't have that prepared yet today. I've asked the city attorney to help us do that, and she's of course agreed that she will put that in the proper format. But the letter of intent reflects the understanding that the council left both the consultant and me with on Saturday, which is that this would be an open-ended employment contract, and that this would pay a base salary of $200,000, which is within the range that had been advertised. This includes 10% deferred compensation, which is fairly standard fare with city manager contracts around the Puget Sound, provides for some memberships in terms of professional development, specifies performance evaluations with certain regularity, provides for vacation and sick leave, which is standard fare, as well as auto allowance to allow the city manager to do city business at city expense. It does provide for a relocation allowance of up to $15,000 to cover the full cost of whatever is necessary for temporary housing and moving expenses, subject, of course, to receipts that would be provided to the city. And it also provides for some civic involvement in some local service groups as well. The first day of employment would be April 17th, which is allowing Mr. Knighton to provide his current city with the notice that's required there. And so I'm very pleased to inform the council that Jeffrey Knighton has accepted the city's offer with enthusiasm and is looking forward to starting here again on April 17th. As I mentioned, we will have a contract before you shortly to formalize that, but on the basis of the letter, I've specified that Mr. Knighton is certainly free to provide the notice and start the process of transition. And as your interim city manager for the rest of this month, as I've committed to the council before, I intend to assist fully with transition over the next few weeks to make sure that that this will be a smooth transition to your next city manager to assist both council and staff as we move forward to the next chapter of the city's history. So that, Mayor and Council, would conclude my report unless any of you have questions about that.
Do I see anyone with questions, comments? I don't think so. I don't see any, and okay. There's no questions or comments.
Well, thank you.
All right. So next will be the council liaison reports. Shall I start on that side? Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. On March 2nd, I attended PSRC's Growth Management Policy Board as the alternate for Snohomish County Towns and Cities. Since our Mayor Pro Tem is our rep, I will let him share most of the wonderful details. But as always, it was a really interesting conversation around, you know, they talked about some of the work that Kirkland has done very intentionally, brought forward, I think, some good tools that I think Mayor Pro Tem asked for to be sent out at some point. And overall, it was another good opportunity to learn more about the work that our region is doing around growth. The next day, or no, that night, we had a work session. The next day, we had our one-on-ones with our city manager candidates and the public reception. Big thank you to everyone from the community who came out to the reception and shared feedback, as well as huge thank you to the staff for all of their work over the course of weeks and months, but particularly last week. They were long days and things ran super smoothly. And every single person involved in the process commented about how well it had gone. And so really do appreciate all of that work. And then as our interim city manager mentioned, the next day we had interviews and ultimately came to a decision. And I think that completes my report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Next will be Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. On the 2nd, I was here Thursday night for the work study session. The third Friday evening was our one-on-one interviews with the candidates, and that evening, the reception with the public and us, council members, for them. And then on the fourth Saturday were our interviews. Thank you. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Payne Donovan?
Well, thank you, Mayor. I will not repeat too much of what my colleagues just shared, but participated in that work session and the city manager recruitment and interview events, and would just like to say that I really enjoyed the public reception. That was very well done, and staff clearly were effective in getting folks from the community to show up. Had a blast meeting some neighbors I'd never met before, and really appreciate being the new council member and seeing the new space sort of activated in that way. I just think it's worth noting that that's what the space was, or the space you're in now was envisioned for, and I hope we can do more of that. But excited that we've got a new city manager, and I think my reports out will be quite slim until I have a chance to get appointed to some of our regional committees and panels. So I'll just make a plug for that. So that's it for me.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Woodard?
Did not see that coming. Thank you, Mayor. I was just coming down the line. And hello, it was me. On the 22nd, I had my first Snohomish County Tomorrow online meeting. I'll leave that to Mayor Pro Tem as well, because he was technically the liaison and was also present. On the 23rd, the next day, I also was online for the Veterans Memorial Park Talk, and really just want to give kudos to our gentlemen who are still in the room here and the staff that they represent. Just such amazing work that's going through the city right now and coming to us. And feedback-wise, hopefully you heard this in your own city manager process interviews, just how amazed all of the candidates are with our park system. And every time they said that, you two just immediately came to mind as the superheroes of that work and just leading that charge. But really just, what a wonderful time to be so exposed as a city, as folks are trying to decide whether or not we're a good fit for them as well. We had 5 amazing candidates, so I really took their opinions to heart. And again, just wanted to say all 5 of them truly echo just how amazing that park system is, with Veterans Memorial Park being the next transformation, if you will. On the 25th, sticking with Parks and Rec, if you will, I did join the second round of Cornhole, along with my colleague down the way, who's just not realizing she too was down there for Cornhole, which is just to say, in the spirit of building community, these are the opportunities that people neglect to remember. No teasing down there. Just saying that folks don't realize that coming up with ideas, especially things that are already a part of the mainstream, and saying, why don't we try that here? Which is my way of saying I was at the first one where it was Danielle, her daughter, my spouse, and myself, and it was great. We had a great big room. We had a great time. We won. That's right, Danielle, I'm taunting you. But nonetheless, that next time we came back, we both had committed to saying, let's bring more people with us, and that happened. She brought quite a few folks. I was able to bring my neighbors and their little ones, which is just a reminder that this is truly an all-family game, and you would think I'm getting cornhole kickbacks the way I'm going on and on about it, but really just want to remind us, bring ideas to us, because it's really community building, and that's what that's about. That said, I had hoped to bring a whole entourage with me, but due to common sense, Ivy League canceled our morning event. But I do want to recognize we have one of our Ivy League, actually several Ivy Leagues in the room, but one in particular in the audience with us, Susan. Nice to see you, Susan. But we canceled Ivy League just for common sense. Again, it was so cold, if folks remember, it was snowing off and on as well. But that same Saturday, an article that I wrote thanking volunteers in particular, but food bank volunteers specifically, was published in the Herald, Everett Herald. And really that's just my way of saying yet another way to improve the quality of life and just that ability to engage with your community. There's so many ways to get involved, and thank you for everyone who uses their weekends in that way, let alone their Monday through Friday. Pushing forward, on the 28th, I participated that morning in Economic Alliance of Snohomish County's coffee chat, They did a legislative update, which a lot of those legislators are folks who are down there fighting for our city as well. So it was an honor to be online in that space. And then later in that day, I wouldn't normally bring this up, but I'll parlay that into a point, which is I also went to Verdant's partnership meeting, which is a number of nonprofits. And I bring that up to tie that back to this idea of getting involved, which is to say, I think you all know who Farmer Frog is. The organization Farmer Frog, when we brought our pop-up pantry, they contributed some meals, or excuse me, they contributed some resources to our city in the form of fresh vegetables from the east side, bringing that to the west side. Well, it turns out they do a heck of a lot more than that. So rather than go too deep into that, just know that Farmer Frog offers a lot of opportunities to bring groups together. And I'm going to pitch some ideas down the road here on maybe a way for the city to get involved in some ideas just around exactly as it sounds, farming and produce and just giving back. Moving forward, we step into March, which is my way of saying welcome to Women's History Month, one of my favorite months. And then the rest of this sounds very familiar. I was at our study session on the 2nd. And then on the 3rd and 4th, had the opportunity to be with our city managers, the hiring process. But that morning of the 3rd, I did participate in Linwood's State of the City, which is just to double back to say I hope one day we do revisit that and bring that forth in some capacity. But did want to pause as I wrap up my report and just say, at the end of Saturday, I did not share any words, and that was out of respect for the staff. Which is just to say, I know we keep saying, thank you, staff, you made this look so wonderful and it went so smoothly, and that is absolutely true, but there was something else that they had to really demonstrate, which was patience. I can only imagine, because I know it's one of my pet peeves, if someone says it's 15 minutes, I start twitching when we get to the 16th minute, and we did that extension several times, but I promise you it was for the right reasons, which we just heard from our soon-to-be former interim city manager, or are you interim? What's your actual adjective before city manager? You're not part-time by any imagination, so.
No, are you saying you want to put more adjectives before it or something?
Yes, because you're city manager, but you actually, is it interim? Thank you. So interim city manager.
Yes.
You will be sorely missed, and I think that's the right word I want to use there, because it's just been amazing, the growth that I personally have felt myself as a council member, but our city has absolutely benefited from you saying, yeah, I'm going to step out of this consulting role and step into the lead role for you all. But you didn't just sit down on your hands. You absolutely took time to make sure that you're leaving the city better than it was. And here I'm thinking about the new staffing opportunities for everything from performance reviews, which I think are super important. How else do you know if you're growing if you're not getting feedback? To just training opportunities and thinking across the group. And I hope that the senior directors would say that, you empowering them to speak up and to be able to get their work done and feel supported in that process. As a new person yourself, I just want to make sure that we pause and just say thank you for that work as well. As I wrap this by saying, we talked to the 5 finalists in person, but I believe we had 13 to 16 actual candidates. Sorry we didn't get to meet all of you, but truly the 5 that we did meet, you hear this almost to the point that it sounds cliche, but we genuinely would have won with any of you. And so having to make that tough decision of which person to actually come forward as our candidate was not easy. And I am honored to have been a part of that process. And quite frankly, going back to this idea of being vulnerable, it was great to get feedback on us as a council from folks who wanted to join us. And similar to how much they loved the parks, they also each in their own way said very clearly how the way this council works together. Case in point, letting me have as much time on this microphone as you want. I'm sure somebody in a different council would already have been puffing or somehow showing displeasure instead of giving the grace and space to say, this is how you express yourself, please do so. And that's showing up in the form of, we had 5 amazing candidates who were willing to uproot their families and move here. And I don't want to neglect to acknowledge that that's an honor to be a part of a council that's inspiring people in that way. That said, that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Sonmore.
Thank you. For my liaison reports, the RFA committee, I just want to thank the PRO committee for doing their due diligence and having citizens in our area that took the time to go out of their way to do that. And Park and Rec will happen next month because we already had our meeting this month, but I just wanted to remind everybody to sign up for their free tree if you saw the article that was released, I think it was Saturday, I think the city of Seattle has lost, it's thousands of acres of trees in the last few years. And so that's going to cause some concern, but our city is going out of their way. I think there's 5 or 6 different types of trees you can get. And there is a Japanese maple that has these beautiful white blooms. It's beautiful. If anybody wants a tree, I'd highly recommend ordering one through the city on our website. And then again, congratulations to Jeff Knighton, I think I'm saying his name right, for our new city manager, and to the city council and staff for organizing, coordinating, and we really put each candidate through the ringer. I'm so glad it wasn't me going through that process. I really felt for each and every one of them, and they were all a delight. They were wonderful. And again, Andrew, as our interim city manager, thank you for all that you've done. We really appreciate that. And then I just wanted to bring up Mark Safari again. If we can get a proclamation or something that we can give to his family, and have staff come in to recognize him, I think that's something that, as a council, we should honor somebody as our employee who has recently passed away. And then I did receive, and we all received, a complaint about speeding on 44th between 228th and 212th. And I can tell you that's a long-standing stretch, and it's been an issue off and on for many years, and I'm hoping that the police can follow up or put out the signs where you can see how fast you're going, or do some sort of patrol on that when they have time, because it was a complaint and we want to make sure our roads are safe. And then again, thank you to our Eagle Scout, Matthew, who came in, and our special flag lady, Sally. And I don't, flag lady just doesn't work for me. I think we need to come up with something even specialer than that. So, but thank you. That's all I have to report.
Thank you. Mayor Filtan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. All right, so let's see. Snohomish County tomorrow steering committee meeting on February 22nd. We covered the health district, the merger between the health district into the county Department of Health, which, based on the report, went very smoothly and quite well. However, the real story is there's a few hiccups that remain, and there's the health district and the board is still having to clean up a few more things, and we're working our way through that, but eventually we are going to have a smooth operating health department through the county. But in the meantime, you can follow up with our representative on the health board, our mayor, for more detail and information. But bottom line is it has been a very long and challenging process to merge the health district into the health department. They've done a lot of amazing heavy lifting in a short period of time to make that happen, but still a few more things to iron out. On the 23rd, we had the Puget Sound Regional Council Operations Committee, where we reviewed the operations and some contracts related for services related to the move of the building. If you haven't heard, the Puget Sound Regional Council is moving their building from one location to a new location. If you want more information, let me know. There's no really need to go into too much detail on that here. Following the Operations Committee meeting, we had the Puget Sound Executive Board meeting, where we discussed the got an update on the state legislative agenda. And let's see, and then also had a report on the America's Competitiveness Exchange, which is coming here in May, which is really a very exciting opportunity that we have in this region. It's a global exchange of discussion about the economic development, competitiveness, and businesses in everybody's region throughout the world, and everybody comes together in these conferences to talk about and brag about what they're doing in their regions. Well, we are the host of that. This region is the host of that this year, and so we have the opportunity to share all of the great things we're doing here in the Puget Sound. They'll be in the process inviting all of our global guests to each of the counties and touring each of the counties, including Snohomish County, to share and brag about what we're doing here in our region. So if you want more information, I'd be happy to share that as well, but it's an exciting event. The other thing we spent a lot of time on is the Safe Streets Grant. And this is a $5 million grant that was awarded to the Puget Sound region, where the Puget Sound Regional Council is taking the lead on, actually, this is another part of the national infrastructure funding measure through the feds, right? We've already received some local funding through that program. We're looking to get some additional funding through the RAISE grant, which is also part of that program. This is another one of the programs, Safe Streets program, that is providing grants to regions throughout the country. This was the first stab at it in this region. So there were several cities within this region and the county, and I'm sorry, the PSRC, that submitted applications to funding safe streets. What ended up happening is the feds ended up coming back to our region saying, hey, we want you to pool and work together. I'm explaining this in detail because I'm hoping that our city manager and Phil Williams, our public works director, are taking notes, and I'll get you more information on it. But because there's an opportunity here. So what they did is they asked our region and the cities within the region to pool, to consolidate the grants, all the grants, and submit them together. And then we were awarded $5 million, and PSRC is a lead agency for working through those grants with both the cities and the regional grants. So I say all of this because that was this year. Next year is another opportunity for additional Safe Street grant funding, and on, right? So this is an annual grant that we have the opportunity to submit, so we can join with Puget Sound Regional Council, let them be the lead agency and pull together all the necessary grant application information. We just have to provide and work with them as a partner in doing that. We just have to identify which streets we want to get funding for safe streets. So anyway, long explanation. I hope, thank you for bearing with me, but I look forward to working with folks on submitting some applications in the future and working with PSRC to get some funding back here. All right, so then on the March 2nd, had the Puget Sound Regional Council Growth Board meeting, where we reviewed the initial review of the Kirkland Regional Growth Center. So as you know, there's about 30 some growth centers around Puget Sound region. This is the latest one that is applying to be a growth region. Linwood, by the way, is one of our regional growth centers. Then we also discussed the Housing Incentives and Tools Survey and Growth Management Act projections, targets, forecasts. So those are, again, topics you'll be hearing much more about and have been hearing me talk about for quite a bit, and we'll continue here as we move through the comp plan update process. But in Snohomish County tomorrow is going to be discussing the growth management targets again. So the growth allocations, how much growth each of our cities is going to take, and how we're going to accommodate that growth. That's going to be a hot topic. And then the Housing Incentives and Tools Survey was simply a survey of all the different jurisdictions in our region and what tools they are using and incentives they're using to provide more housing and affordable housing throughout the region. So it was a great opportunity for us to be able to see what's working and what jurisdictions are utilizing to accommodate growth and provide housing, and what seems to be working better than others, and also opportunities for where, what we haven't been utilizing yet, but could be utilizing and maybe utilizing better. So more to come on that as well. Then on this later that evening, we had our council work session. Following next day, March 3rd, Snohomish County City's Executive Board meeting. We reviewed the dates and topics for our upcoming meeting, so mark on your calendars April 20th. We will be talking about probably economic development. Then on July 20th, we'll have a legislative review and discuss public safety update. Then October 19th, we're going to have a discussion about comp plan updates and housing, particularly the HO5 report, and how we're going to accommodate housing to meet all economic segments in society in each of our cities. We discussed upcoming board meetings, and we also talked about, so we're going to have, by the way, all those dinners are going to be at Terrace again in Everett as a central location. But one of the things we wanted to do is think about having regional dinners. So during the off meetings, months of off meetings, maybe we as a region might want to get together and host a dinner perhaps here in Mountlake Terrace or somewhere else.
Linwood, Edmonds, whatever, and talk amongst ourselves, invite all of our council members from within our region to get together and just kind of exchange ideas and opportunities for building relationships with our fellow council members in the region. Also talked about some other organizational things and some communication matters and the budget for Snohomish County cities. Then we had our city manager in one-on-one interviews, followed by the public reception in the evening, and a very long day of interviewing the candidates. I guess I think we were all exhausted after that process, and can't imagine how exhausted staff must have been. Again, as all others have said, kudos, amazing work. You guys did a great job in pulling that all together and making that all happen for us, and we very much appreciate it. We, as has also been mentioned, we've had some great candidates. We were thrilled to bring some 5 outstanding individuals to this community and grill them extensively, but others have touched on a lot of different things. But what I want to touch on is what an amazing council we have, because we went through a very difficult, challenging process, and we had 5 great candidates. And we each had our individual ideas of who might be the #1 choice, but rather than dividing this council, I'm proud to say that we came together in a manner that brought consensus, and as we normally do. I think that's one of the things we heard from each of the candidates, is we are very consensus-driven. You hear stories from other councils about how divisive they are and how difficult they are, and you hear, and you heard from the candidates, the first city manager, how important it was for them to want to work in a city where a council is consensus-driven, works together, works well together, and appreciates and respects each other. And that's what we did, despite how long it took, and we apologize again for how long that took, but it was worth it for the city because of the nature of finding consensus. And it is more important to work together as council members and as a city than to be divided and find ourselves in peril going forward. So with that, I'm excited for the new era we're going to have in this city with a new city manager starting April 17th, and looking forward to working together with the city manager, with our staff, with our community in moving forward and continuing to make this a great place to live. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So for my report, I'm going to start with February 25th, and that's when I was invited to the Tibetan Association of Washington's New Year celebration at our senior center in Mountlake Terrace. And I have to say that they treat their guests like royalty. They held it there because they used to be in Shoreline, but then that space was no longer available, so they found our space and absolutely love it because it's right off the freeway. And so they now hold their Sunday school, the Tibetan Children's Sunday School there in the Mountlake Terrace location. I wanted to thank the president, Kunek Bok Gompo, and then the new leader that's up and coming, Pasang Buti, and she is a Mountlake Terrace resident. And so that's, and she was very, very excited to see her mayor and other people show up at this celebration. I have photos if anybody wants copies of that. And then I also wanted to mention that Jamyang Dorji, who works at Community Transit, is also a very, very active member with them. And I'm on 2 committees with him. And then so continuing on to the 27th of February, I went to the All Snohomish County Mayor's meeting. And that's when we talked about the background for the letter that we signed for the local classes for police officers. And then on the 28th of February, I also attended the Economic Alliance of Snohomish County's coffee because it was a mid-session update with some legislators and with their legislative lobbyist, and ours, Shelley Helder, who did a great job, by the way. And then on the 28th, I attended the DEM Advisory Group meeting, and that's the Department of Emergency Management Advisory Group meeting that I didn't even know I was on. I thought it was the Health Board extended, and I'm finding out that that's a meeting that apparently the mayors are on. And it's new, On on March 1st, I attended the Board of Health Executive Committee meeting, and I asked them, why am I still on this? And I found out that I am on, because Board of Health meets once a month, but the Executive Committee meeting until during the time that we were doing the merger, we met every single week. And so now we have some things that we have to follow up on. So I'm still on the Board of Health Executive Committee, and I'm on the Board of Health, because we're going to be meeting until October. And then I attended the South County Mayor's meeting. And then on the 2nd, I attended the Housing Consortium. We call it the breakfast, but we do it by Zoom now. But they had a group that helps low-income housing people come up with ways of putting together finances and such to build places for people to live, which I can get more information on if you're interested. And then later on that afternoon, I attended the community transit meeting. And then on the 3rd of March, in the morning at 7:30, I attended the Seashore Transportation Forum. And I don't know why I like that, but they did concentrate on North County and Snohomish County working together with King County with our bus systems. And then that afternoon, I attended the city manager's candidate interviews with the reception after that. And the next day, the all-day 9-hour extravaganza. But we did come up with a good city manager that we picked. And that is the end of my report. So, anyone have anything to add before I go on to new business? Andrew.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I just want to thank you for acknowledging the role of the staff in the city manager selection process. It was very much a team effort, very much all hands on deck. People just volunteered to do all sorts of things that they don't normally do to help make it a successful process. So I appreciate your words of acknowledgement. I also appreciate your words of acknowledgement about Mark Safarian. Mark, as you know, is a longtime city engineer who was very dedicated to the work that he did for the city, was instrumental in bringing millions of dollars of grant money to the city over time, and who died unexpectedly about 8 or 9 days ago at home. We have been in contact with his family to assist as much as we can, and I'm very proud that the staff who worked with him have organized a moment of remembrance later this week where they can quietly walk to the park to remember all the time they spent working with Mark. So thank you for honoring him this evening.
Thank you. So next is new business. Does anyone have any new business? Councilmember Woodard.
Thank you, Mayor. Today's favorite day arrived. Water bills hit the doors, hit mailboxes. And I was looking at our water bill, and I noticed, so partly kudos and then partly new business. If you look at your water bill, the first flap, so your address and all that, underneath the green bar, underneath the current charges, you see there's a message. Have an unpaid balance from 2020 to 2021. The city has funds available through Volunteers of America. Get up to $1,000 paid off your balance, exclamation mark. And then the contact information, call, email, schedule an appointment. So one, I just wanted to say thank you, whoever was wise enough to put that on there, because I had wondered, how do we make sure that people know that this funding is available? So it was wonderful to finally pause and stare at the bill. Usually everything's electronic, and you just kind of get in the habit of going, oh my God, it hurts, and pay it. But this time I paused and looked at that, and I just thought the placement was great, and the reminder was great. And here comes the new business. I was a little bit curious, I think. No, I was a lot bit curious why we stopped at 2020 to 2021. I know that that was a rough year, but 2022 is in the books now. And that's my way of saying, well, if we're still talking about bills from 2 years ago, which I know we had updates throughout the council during that process of how many people fit that profile, how many people could benefit if they acted, and then we actively reached out to that group, if I remember correctly. It would be curious to know if we still have funding available, if we can't consider as a council expanding that to 2021 to 2022 to see if anyone is still caught in that same unpaid balance that could benefit from this money. The presumption being that we have probably exhausted everyone who's going to act upon their 2020 bill, and perhaps there's a new set of people who have fallen into this unfortunate situation who didn't have that happen until the year 2021 or 2022. So I'm not sure what that process is, but wanted to put that on our radar as something to revisit, but wanted to couch it in the kudos of putting it on here and making sure our residents know that if we created problems for you, we are doing our best to create resolutions as well, and that being an example.
Anyone else? I have one thing. I just wanted to mention that Edmonds Comedy Night is on the 10th and 11th, Friday and Saturday of March, at the Edmonds Community Center. Edmonds Community, ECA, Edmonds Center for the Arts. And why do I mention this? Because the headliner is Edmonds Comedy Night. Headliner is Kermit Apio, who is one of our Mountlake Terrace residents and a nationally known comedian. And this is a benefit for the children of the Edmonds School District. So if anyone wants to have a night of comedy, it is on March 10th and 11th. And I plan to go. And that is all that I have. So I'm sure we all want to adjourn. So it's been a long week, or it's the beginning of the week. It's been a long, whatever. We're adjourned.